It was reported in the Times last week that Irish Residential Properties Reit, Ires, the country's largest private landlord, is forecasting that up to 10,000 apartments may hit the market in the next 2 years. For those that are new to the channel, I'm Fleming. I've worked in real estate for the last 20 odd years. I'm currently working on a prop tech startup called PropGen. I have a degree in property economics, and I also create YouTube videos, so perhaps you might consider subscribing to this channel. So let's look at the headline: 10,000 apartments coming to the market in the next 2 years. In the following context: the market landscape, these fund structures, the buildings themselves, and issues that will be faced if they try to sell these properties on the open market to the public, who might be interested in actually buying them, and what impact overall will it have on supply and ultimately price, and is a crash going to happen? About 2 years ago or so, it was reported that the top 10 private landlords in Ireland control about 17,000 units. I'd say it's a little bit closer to maybe 25,000 now. But Ires is one of the largest private landlords in the state with about 4,000 units. The report that triggered this video suggested that there's about 10,000 coming to the market soon. So it's important to know that the people who actually said 10,000 are coming to the market only actually control about 4,000 of those. The Ires report itself actually suggests that there's about 25,000 apartments held by investment funds in Dublin. This ties back into articles from about 2 years ago that the top 10 private landlords hold about 17,000, but 25,000 is not a large number in terms of the overall market when you really think about it. The Ires report is on the back of Ires themselves pulling out of a number of deals. They've also sold a few sites, and they've had major issues with shareholders. They even had to replace their CEO this year. So this report could be to deflect from some of their own issues that they're facing themselves. So when considering this possible sale, it's important to understand the fund structure and the fund market that actually buy up these properties or bought up these properties and are considering selling them. Generally speaking, this is not always the case, but generally speaking, a fund manager will be acting for a large company like BlackRock, Blackstone, Standard Life, and they will raise a significant amount of funds from the private market from private investors and other institutions as well. Let's say this fund manager raises 300 million from the private market, manages to borrow another 700 million from institutional banks. That gives them about $1 billion to invest. These fund managers generally get paid a percentage every single year plus a bonus on how well the fund does. They generally target most of these funds to run for 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years they generally sell off the assets and pay back the initial investors and pay back the borrowings, and hopefully they give themselves a nice bonus at that stage as well. There are variations of this. Sometimes a fund manager can opt not to sell or can sell early or later. Some funds are open-ended, other funds are closed-ended, and it forces them at a hard date when they have to sell up. But generally speaking, they lock up investors for about 7 years. So funds that were set up in 2018, 2019 will be getting close to that 7-year payback period, and many of them will be considering selling. If you were to look at that period in terms of 2018, 2019, and the number of these type of properties that were bought, about 8,000 to 9,000 units were acquired in those years by private funds. So it would be a very safe bet or a safe assumption to make that many of these funds are getting close to when they're going to have to sell or refinance. And therefore, a lot of these properties will be coming to the market. So therefore, it's a safe assumption that there will be about 10,000 units coming to the market, but one could deem that as a normal business cycle and not a mass sell-off. An important factor to consider is the building themselves that are being referred to and what issues they would face if they were ever to be sold on the open market. Many of these buildings are built for rent or co-living units that made it through planning. They were never constructed or are planning to be subdivided and sold as private individual units. They wouldn't meet the planning requirements to be sold as individual units. They wouldn't have Part 5 or social affordable elements to it either. They'd also probably bring in huge issues or complex issues in regards to VAT if they were to be sold as individual units to the public. Even some buildings that were designed to be sold as individual units but were bought up by these funds, they were never split from legal titles, or there was never management companies set up. So there's an awful lot of work to be done there to ensure that the right planning requirements and building requirements are there to be sold as individual units as well. So that brings in some major issues, perhaps some really big issues in terms of actually trying to subdivide the units again or subdivide the titles, so it just wouldn't be worth it. Another major issue to consider, and perhaps the biggest issue of all, is the sitting tenants. Large landlords don't have the right to ask sitting tenants to vacate if they are planning to sell. So therefore it would be a very slow process if they were planning to sell each individual unit, because they'd have to wait for every single tenant to leave and then slowly sell the properties off. So selling off these type of units that are controlled by large funds in these type of buildings to private individual buyers is going to be extremely difficult, extremely costly, and probably not even worth trying in most cases. Funds will generally try to sell to other funds, sometimes on market, sometimes off market. Who will the buyers be though? If there's rental caps in place, interest rates are putting off some buyers at the moment. So these funds have cycles. There will be ones who are looking to sell out. They've reached the 7 years. They'll look to maximize their returns for their investors. And as they do that, there'll be other funds being set up to perhaps take less risks or promise less returns, and they'll look to buy these assets perhaps at a discount for these funds trying to sell out. But it is likely that the buyers of these 10,000 units that are potentially coming up to the market will be other funds, and if they don't buy it, there's a potential for housing bodies to move in there and then slowly move their tenants in as well. But it is extremely unlikely that these units will become available to the private market or private individual buyers. What does this mean for supply and prices within the normal housing market? Let's say 10,000 units come to the market over the next 2 years, that's 5,000 a year. Construction of new build for rent units is slowing down. I don't think supply for that sector is going to increase dramatically. Therefore, there will still be a market for funds to buy up these units. I don't think it will have an overall impact at all in terms of the housing market. I think supply of second-hand homes is still going to remain extremely low, and we need to double the amount of supply just to even get back to 2019 levels. So an extra 10,000 units or 5,000 units is not going to make a huge difference. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. Let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comments below. Is it a sign of a crash to come, or funds about to exit the Irish market? Let me know what you think. And as always, thanks for watching.